run! There's an assassin! Where? Where is it? Oh, just like 40 miles away on top of a tower? Is it endangering you? Yes, of course, it could be here any second. It's that fast? No, but it can turn invisible. Then how do you know where it is? Oh, I implanted it with a GPS tracker? Are you sure that you aren't the assassin here? Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, with the release of the new title update came new monsters, and oh boy, is the last one that you unlock an absolute treat. Finally, we have the return of a beloved monster, a rare species, the Lucent Nargacuga. This creature hasn't made an appearance since the 3rd generation, and as you may expect, it has had some extreme upgrades. First things first, let's talk about the map. The map is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, the Forlorn arena is already an awesome locale that we saw for the last couple of monsters, the dilapidated architecture falling apart at the seams, the overall growth on the walls to show you how long it's been abandoned, but once you see it at night, you'll forget all about it being cool during the day, because this place is just completely stunning in the dark. I'm now sad that this is just the only quest currently that we have on this map in this arena at night, because I just want to be here more during this beautiful mood. And nothing against Lucent Nargacuga, but I want to fight all manner of monsters under this beautiful starlight that we have here, not just the one. Speaking of Lucent, though, he is of course the main star of this night-based show, and he shines so damn brightly. The main things that have been held over from this original version of this monster is that it is Nargacuga with poison tail feathers and that he goes invisible, but the way that he uses both of these mechanics is significantly different from before in the best of ways. The invisibility, for the most part, is just used as a repositioning tool, a way to surprise you before engaging in an attack, sort of like sneaking around behind you so you don't even see him coming. But what is fun about this invisibility is that while it is proper invisibility, his body fully disappears and you can't see any part of him, he has 2 different ways to track his movements while he does this. The first is dust kicked up from the ground. You can see when he does little hops because a small cloud pops up from where he's standing, and when he's enraged, the red eye glow will show up even when he is otherwise totally invisible, which is, of course, one of the coolest visuals that a monster can have. Just floating, evil-looking eyes. I'm not saying that he is evil, but he definitely looks like it during this part. The coolest attack that comes from the invisibility, though, is one of its biggest moves, where he goes invisible for a good 10 seconds or so, hopping around back and forth, side to side, really trying to confuse you, before jumping to land on the ground, visible for just a mere moment before pulling off an incredibly speedy backflip. This move is one of his deadliest, not just because of how little warning he gives you while actually visible, but it packs quite a punch as well. The other coolest way that he uses the invisibility is in the lead up to the attack that I'll be referring to as the Cat Tornado.
Well, that looks familiar.
What this attack specifically reminds me of is actually Silverwind Nargacuga, the deviant from Generations. This monster would curl its tail in such powerful motions that it would fire out projectile wind discs that applied bleed. And while this monster doesn't fire it out as a projectile or apply bleed by any means, it does turn itself into a projectile. And I can only imagine how dizzy that it gets in the process. This move is awesome. It covers a lot of ground, and it is unique to this monster. I'm quite a fan of it. Then we come to the poisonous tail feathers. The most common way that you'll see these used is as part of the tail swipes in general, or the more fun one, which is tail slams when the monster is enraged. It will slam it down, and when it does, it will shoot out poisonous quills in various directions from the location of impact. But it also uses these in much cooler ways throughout the fight as well, if you let it run around without knocking it over. The 2 most notable ways of this are piles of raining feathers, almost like the arc shot that the bow weapon itself uses, putting down little poisonous warning clouds on the floor, and then after a couple of seconds, a volley of feathers will fall down from the sky into each cloud in order depending on distance from the initial attack. This move is incredibly cool and can easily catch you off guard if you aren't expecting it. Another big super move that this creature has uses these quills as well, and it uses them in a way that is reminiscent of a Frontier Nargacuga attack, doing a flip to release an absolute barrage of these into the sky, which will then fall in a tight circle around the Nargacuga, then a slightly larger circle, and then one more larger circle for a 3rd ring of poisonous hell. This is an incredibly fun moment in the fight that looks cool as all hell, and is probably one of the best natural progressions of what a Nargacuga could do with what it has to become more deadly, and that, in essence, is what makes Lucent Nargacuga so great to me. Regardless of the invisibility, which of course is incredibly cool in its own right, this creature is essentially how can we take Nargacuga and make it meaningfully more challenging without breaking your immersion, without taking you out of the headspace of fighting a Nargacuga. This creature is undeniably based on a Nargacuga, and it doesn't do anything insane with that. It just makes the most of the potential a Nargacuga has. Overall, I think the fight is an excellent headliner for the first title update. It shakes things up the most, and it is the most hype of the 4 that have been added. My only singular wish is that it was a little bit more challenging. Obviously, I am saying this from the position of someone who literally plays Sunbreak like it's my job, because, well, it is. I'm well past MR100, I've killed loads of afflicted monsters, and I have a near perfect set outside of the talisman, so I may not be the average player, especially as this quest can be unlocked at MR10, but I don't think it is unusual to have the experience that I've had with this monster either, which is that it was an extremely fun fight that was never quite in danger of carding me, not to mention triple carding me. A lot of this, of course, has to do with it being in an arena, and thus giving you the Rainbow Spirit Bird at the beginning. After all, that thing just gives you an extra 100 health just for having it, and if you had 30% less health, then it would be very much easier to die to these same attacks. But considering that they put this fight within this arena, that is how I will choose to judge it. That said, let's get into how this monster will affect other monsters in the game, its equipment. First up, the universal unlocks, decorations. Killing Lucent Nargacuga will unlock 3 new decorations. The 3-slot foil jewel, which gives 1 level of tune-up, the new bowgun specific skill, the 4-slot razor jewel plus for 2 levels of the razor sharp skill, and then finally the hard venom jewel for all 3 levels of poison attack in a 4-slot decoration. These are all interesting for their own reasons and could see use in specific builds, but I wouldn't say any of them are particularly crazy to see existing just in general. The closest would be the venom decoration if the regular venom deco wasn't a 1-slot deco, but it is, which means that you'd basically be trading a 4-slot for 3 1-slots, which just isn't a fantastic trade. However, these do exist now if you would like to use them. Moving on then to the weapons, these aren't necessarily bad in the slightest, they aren't head and shoulders the best for every weapon or anything like that either. This isn't a major power creep situation though, but generally speaking they have good deco slots, great raw attack, decent poison value, purple sharpness, and while it only has a rampage 1 slot that can now be augmented through the curious crafting system to no longer be an issue. Overall, these are usable, and if you are planning on making some sort of status-based build, they get a lot better, especially around 4A. But they aren't God's gifts to weapons by any means, and if you're going to compare them to the quality of Lucent Nargacuga's weapons in Monster Hunter 3U, you will be extremely disappointed, as they have way less affinity and sharpness than those ones did to try to keep them in line with the current power limits of our current weapons. When it comes to the armor though, this is where things will get really interesting.
Check under the hood.
Visually speaking, it is very similar to regular Master Rank Nargacuga, but significantly shinier and more colorful. It's quite nice in that regard, but what is particularly fun is the skills that it has. As a whole, the set comes with 5 handicraft, 3 ammo up, 5 agitator, 3 sneak attack, 1 critical boost, 3 adrenaline rush, 3 evade window, and 2 spread up. It also has a decent amount of decoration space, and you may have noticed within that list that there are not just 1, but 2 new skills. Adrenaline rush is essentially the evasion mantle from World in skill format, and at rank 3 it gives you plus 30 raw attack for a short duration after evading a monster attack with perfect timing. The exact duration here is 30 seconds, and plus 30 raw is actually quite a good bonus as well. If this skill was available on decorations or on talismans, it would definitely find its way into the meta in some form. Sneak attack, on the other hand, is a much stranger skill. At rank 3, it gives you 20% bonus raw attack when hitting a monster from behind. The skill says 12% in English. This is a mistranslation that is only in the English version. It is actually 20% bonus. As for what counts as behind, it is literally the entire back half of the monster. 180 degrees counts as the front, 180 degrees counts as the back. For more interesting interactions within this, the rotation is counted from the origination of the damage source at the time of the damage hitting. By which I mean, if you use pierce ammo from behind a monster, it counts as every hit as being from behind, even if you manage to hit the head from that angle. Now to take out my hunting horn, we can see some more interesting applications of this as well. The Sonic Bloom egg counts as the source of damage for Sonic Bloom, by which I mean if the egg is in front of the monster and the hunter is in front of the monster, it obviously gets no damage bonus. If the egg is in front of the monster but the hunter is behind the monster, it still gets no damage bonus because the egg is considered the source of the damage. If the egg is behind the monster and the hunter is in front of the monster, it gets a 20% damage bonus. Now let's apply this to Silkbind Shockwave to see something even more niche. This Silkbind, for anyone who doesn't know, makes it so your attacks have a secondary pop of damage that happens about a second after you hit the monster. These count as originating from the hunter, and this works maybe backwards to what you might expect. When I went into this, I expected to find that the shockwave would match the initial damage angle, but in reality it's a bit more complex than that. If you hit the monster in the front, but move behind it before before the shockwave goes off, the shockwave will get the 20% damage bonus, and vice versa. If you hit a monster from behind, they move to the front, it won't get the damage bonus then. These types of situations won't come up for most weapons, and they won't even come on often for Hunting Horn, but Hunting Horn is one where I consider this skill to be particularly interesting because of the ways to apply damage from different angles than where you're standing, and the number of ways to ignore hit zones as well. Unfortunately, in the end, the main thing that restricts this skill is that in solo hunts, the monster will be looking at you 90% of the time, like with its front half, and past that, even the majority of monsters have their weak spot on the front, things like heads or claws, with tails and hind legs generally being a bit less weak. On top of that, the armor itself that these skills are on just doesn't really have the deco space to support full attack and affinity skills, which means that this will pale in comparison to the potential of our already existing best armor sets that we already had. Once again, if this skill showed up on talismans, decorations, or armor augments, it could definitely make things more interesting, but on its original set, it just doesn't quite do enough. That said, there are some monsters with particularly weak parts on their back half, and in those situations, this skill could definitely still see some use, if you're already aiming for those parts in the first place. All in all, the armor set isn't bad at all, but it doesn't redefine the meta in any way. It is cool, it is thematic, it has 2 new skills that are very fun, but it doesn't break the game by any means. A very cool, enjoyable monster with a very cool, enjoyable armor set, not overly challenging of a fight, and not particularly impactful equipment, which means that while it is fun, the power creep has just not quite set in yet. I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been a review and roundup of the Lucent Nargacuga fight added into Sunbreak, as well as the equipment provided as a result of it. Overall, I absolutely adore that this creature is coming in, and I think it has a very worthy slot holder for this update that makes me excited for the future title updates we have in store as well. I hope you're all enjoying your time with this update so far, and I also hope that you enjoyed this video. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.